It ain't the Sono show anymore. It's now the Bolo show. The Bo and Loki show. I have something to say, and I'm gonna say it quicker than I normally would. Those video clips at the beginning of this video, I show you those to illustrate something. That is what I call the Hiwassee honey hole. I have to hike a couple of miles to get to it. Up a railroad, climb down a steep bank, jump on some rocks to get to it. I also have to drive about 50 minutes, 45 minutes to get to the powerhouse there above the village of Reliance, Tennessee. This honey hole has some very large smallmouth in it, and I've had a lot of luck fishing there the last few years. But on this particular trip, this past Sunday evening that I took, I only caught one smallmouth. Just a little guy, about 9, 10, 11 inches long. You know, it's not always the destination, but the journey itself. I was only able to fish for about an hour, hour and a half, while spending altogether probably about 3.5, 4 hours traveling and walking, round trip. But it's the journey, not the destination. Which leads me to this thought that I've had before. A lot of people on our side of things, you know, we're racialists. Could say ethno-nationalists, white nationalists. And what most of us wish for is a nation or a territory where we have our own sovereignty, to live our lives as we wish, to be the masters of our own destiny, to not be parasitized by various groups. A lot of people talk about this. A lot of people wish for this. Personally, I have the dreams of the independent Republic of Appalachia, where we are autonomous, our financial system is not predatized by our enemies, and that's my dream. But I will say this: beware of Utopia and those who promise it. The concept of Utopia is dangerous, and it's not helpful. This idea that you could bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, it's dangerous, and it's fruitless. Let me tell you now, if we were ever to have an ethno-state, or to recapture and alter the governments that all of our Western nations currently labor under and are enslaved to, this is not the end-all, beat-all, and it's not going to lead to Utopia. I believe it would be helpful, of course, for our people's survival. There would be a massive reduction in the insanity that you see in society. But the problems will not stop there. And you're naive to think so. Because there will still be problems. There will still be conflict. Something I've often wondered, and let's briefly go back in history. Look at some of the various forms of government. Communists used to promise a proletariat utopia, the workers' utopia. We all seen how that turned out, of course. The road to hell, after all, is paved with good intentions. Some people, 200, 250 years ago, believed that America's government, this constitutional republic, was a great and wonderful thing, which perhaps at the time it was. But just look around you and see what it has morphed into, what it has become. I view our government as obviously the ultimate evil, the federal government. And even looking at a certain controversial political regime that rose to power in the 1920s and 30s through the 40s in Western and Central Europe. Many of you admire this regime, and I count myself as one of these people. I also admire it and what they did and how they turned their society completely around in a period of just a few years. It is remarkable. It is absolutely remarkable. I forget where it was, but my old man one time told me that if the Austrian artist had been killed in, say, 1937 or 38, he would have been viewed as one of the greatest statesmen in European history, which I think he already was, obviously. And you know, his nation's transformation. Berlin was the sin capital of Europe, and it became one of the most wealthy cities in the world. The technological advances that they themselves made during those years, you could say that that was perhaps the closest to utopia mankind has ever gotten. Perhaps it was. But they had problems, of course. They had many problems. And later, it became very apparent that they had many enemies as well. And while it may have been somewhat utopic, look at the hell that was unleashed upon the German nation for what they did. And today, even to this very day, look at the white guilt that is placed upon the German people 80 years later. It's like I said a second ago. Beware of utopia and those who promise it. Life is a struggle, and it always will be. It never ends. But the one positive takeaway from all of this, I believe, is that eternal struggle builds eternal strength. Beware of utopia. Those that promise it are trying to sell you a bill of goods. All we can try to do currently is to try to survive, and then later we will thrive. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.